investment in women's sports is not just a charitable investment anymore. You're not just doing it for goodwill. You are actually doing it because it's a smart business move. Look at what Khelo India Asmita has achieved. 500 competitions across almost 27 different sports, engaging 53,000 women athletes. If you want to build cultural affinity, if you want to build genuine connection and lasting connection, most importantly, you'll have to give it time. There's no other way. The audience here in women's sport is actually extremely discerning. It's highly aware. And they will sniff out a brand that's there just for presence. The female sports viewership is rising. The income of athletes is increasing as well. And of course, the investments in this space is also increasing. Almost half of the viewership of women's sports is actually male. Simply put, it's engaged audiences, there is massive scale, and of course, the entry cost is really efficient.
Hello and welcome back to Campaign India. Today we have with us Prachi Narayan, Managing Partner of Havas Play India, to talk about something that's very interesting right now. Prachi, welcome to Campaign India.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
So I'd love to talk to you about women's sports. You guys have released a new report on the inflection point of women's sport in India. And I'd love to talk to you about some of the signals you're seeing, because in October when the women's team won the ICC tournament, it was amazing the amount of attention that they got. What are some of this, but the seeds were there long before. So what are some of the signals that you're seeing?
See, I think the ICC win last year is definitely not just a starting point. It's definitely a confirmation of, a shift that was already underway. I think in terms of signals, the first biggest one is WPL itself. Look at the way it's evolved in the last 3 years, right? In 2023, the first 14 matches had a viewership of almost 50 million viewers. And in 2025, the opening match in itself had 30 million viewers. And the season's total reach was almost 300 million viewers. So I think, what men's cricket managed to do or took almost decades to achieve, women's sport and women's cricket has achieved in just about 3 seasons. So I think that's the biggest signal. Secondly, also, the increasing interest of brands is extremely evident. There were almost 70 brands spread across 45 different categories in WPL last year. And brands are increasing their investments in this space. So I think that's a clear signal, definitely. Third is the investment that's happening in infrastructure as well. Look at what Khelo India Asmita has achieved. 500 competitions across almost 27 different sports, engaging 53,000 women athletes. Now, that's not just a PR line. That's basically a very solid talent.
A proper movement.
Yeah, that's a strong pipeline of talent that you're trying to create. So I think these 3 signals are extremely strong. In general, the economics also now make sense. The female sports viewership is rising. The income of athletes is increasing as well. And of course, the investments in this space is also increasing. So I think overall, it's a great space to be. The question is not if women's sports is growing or not. The question is who's going to take the lead for it.
I love the line you said about the economics are just right at this moment, because we've had women's sport champions in different sports, people who've typified the sport. But right now it's making so much sense for advertisers to just jump in. Like one of the stats in your report is that 86% of brands that advertise in women's sports are meeting or exceeding their ROI expectations. And in this age of performance marketing, that's a big deal. If you could tell me what is driving that shift for the economics?
The number that you just mentioned, the 86% bit, speaks for itself. It's a huge number. And that goes to show that investment in women's sports is not just a charitable investment anymore. You're not just doing it for goodwill. You are actually doing it because it's a smart business move. Let's start by understanding the audiences first. The quality of audience is extremely important here. Anybody who's coming to watch women's sport is highly engaged. They're a value-driven audience, right? Beyond that, also what's interesting is almost half of the viewership of women's sports is actually male. What's interesting here is this is the same audience that's been engaging with men's sport for many years before this. They understand the sports, they understand the nuances, they understand the emotions in sport as well. So you don't need to really spend equity in building fundamental awareness with this audience, right?
Yeah.
So you're also, through women's sports, reaching the right audience, right? Highly engaged, and of course the right audience that already has an experience with fandom. Thirdly, I think what's important is, and the most important piece here is the cost of entry. The kind of sponsorship and integration possibilities that you have in women's sport, they
Yeah.
come at a fraction of the cost of men's sport.
Yeah.
So in that space, I think the ROI that you get and the impact that you can create with little spends that you are actually providing out of your marketing budgets, it does wonders for brands. It does wonders for building cultural affinity as well. And I think the fourth factor is mostly, the market is maturing, and broadcasters are now increasing ad spends because now performance data is much clearer. So all of this put together is basically the result of why ROI is exceeding expectations when it comes to women's sport. Simply put, it's engaged audiences, there is massive scale, and of course, the entry cost is really efficient.
It's literally like getting in on the ground floor.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to advertisers looking to jump in at this moment? I know there are a lot of brands who've already been championing women's sports for years. For those who would like to get in at this point, what would be your advice? Should they avoid to not go to market too early?
I think the first advice would be to not confuse presence with participation.
Okay.
Earlier brands, had this. Brands usually have the strategy of just sort of, being present in a space where there is, a big victory that happens. There's a medal win that happens. There's
Yep.
a momentum that they're trying to catch, right? And being visible
Like
in
the
that
ICC
space.
win.
Absolutely. But the audience here in women's sport is actually extremely discerning. It's highly aware, and they will sniff out a brand that's there just for presence, and they actually don't mean to be there for genuine participation. So I think that is a general advice that I would like to, that I would like brands to really think and follow. In terms of mistakes, I think the first and the largest mistake is being transactional in the approach. A lot of times, brands would want to be present in just that big glory moment, in that victory moment, and it feels exploitative.
Yep.
As brands that want to be a part of women's sport in a way that they want to genuinely participate and they genuinely want to connect with audiences, you need to be there not just during that tournament, not just during that moment, but before and after as well. You need to have a connection where the audience should be able to connect with you as not exploitative, but also wanting to enable the space. I think the second mistake should be expecting instant returns.
Okay.
It's not the short-term sales promotion anymore. If you want to build cultural affinity, if you want to build genuine connection and lasting connection, most importantly, you'll have to give it time. There's no other way. And
So don't expect 86% when you enter.
absolutely. I mean, you'll have to give it time because this space is definitely for, brands and audiences that are willing to, sort of give it time for it to evolve.
Yeah.
I think the third mistake essentially would be to over control the narrative. Look at the women athletes today. They're truly a reflection of who we as Indian women are today, right? They're not shy of who they are. They're not shy of showing themselves to the world. They wear their emotions on their sleeve, and that reflects in the kind of narrative that they build on their social media as well.
Yeah.
So over controlling personalities like that will not work anymore. Gone are the days when you over scripted athletes and got them to say the lines even if they weren't comfortable with it. But I think that is one piece that we should let them be. We should let the personalities of athletes come out in the way they are, and I think that should work for the brand. That should do wonders for the brand as well. And the last mistake I feel is all of us feel that cricket is, the lasting sport. I think we've seen the kind of achievements women athletes have made in
Yeah.
other spaces, be it squash, be it table tennis, be it, shooting. look at what Manu Bhaker has achieved. I think we now need to really give that credit to other spaces as well beyond cricket, because these athletes have been in commercial conversations, have been in mainstream conversations without the commercial vehicle of cricket driving them actually.
Yeah.
So I think more or less, we need to sort of enter early, but you need to enter with intent, be authentic. I think that would do it.
I love what you said earlier about audiences being highly engaged, and they're ones who've already been championing men's sport. You'd mentioned that we're no longer passive viewers, it's now active participation. It's multi screen behavior, you're live tweeting, streaming, reacting in time to the match. If you could tell me a little bit about how consumption has changed.
I think the fact that the audiences now have a way of engaging two ways with sport as well, that's changing the space altogether. Fundamentally, sponsorship has changed. Earlier, brands would be present with that one logo jersey,
Yeah.
with that one season sponsorship, or in that ad break, or in that key moment, right? Today, fandom is continuous, and what you've just mentioned, brands are, audiences are actually creating reels, audiences are, sort of remixing moments. What happens with this is brands are now increasingly realizing that you cannot be present in just that moment and disappear after that. Nobody's going to remember you for that. Which is why it's important that brands now focus on an always on narrative. Okay. So you're not going to be present just during that match moment, just during that tournament, but also before and after. You have to have multiple storylines. You have to have, focus on athlete journeys. What do they do after the tournament is over? And I think this is what, builds this conversation further.
It's interesting because, as you said, brands are no longer in that one moment. Like earlier, you used to be able to decide, okay, this is how I'm going to enter culture. But now, with an always on narrative, the way you approach culture has changed. How can brands step into culture without interrupting it?
Absolutely. I think, what happens here is brands have been used to interrupting moment for visibility all this while.
Yeah.
But the kind of audience that there is now, in women's sport especially, you have to become a part of the culture. You cannot be interrupting it anymore. If you interrupt, people eject. Definitely. So I think the greatest part about this is being a part of that culture, enabling that space, not just looking like you're enabling the space. Also, most importantly, I think authentically, genuinely, contributing to the space is something that brands can do.
Okay. And any brands that come to mind when you think about someone who's interpreted culture well and like very neatly stepped into it?
Absolutely. I think one of our brands, Hyundai, has done this successfully. They took about five women cricketers as brand ambassadors almost 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
When the wave of women cricket was not even there. This is not just because they had a vision that women's cricket was going to grow, but also I think a genuine responsibility somewhere as a brand that cares about the country, that cares about the younger generation. I think they saw that space, and they've contributed in evolving that space. I would definitely say that.
It's amazing. It's interesting that we're talking about how early mover brands are starting to reap the benefits of that long-term vision. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Indian fandom, like in our fandom ecosystem, because as you mentioned, it's highly engaged. It's a very mobile first audience. But in some respects, even though we're pegged to hit say 10 billion by 2028, do you think that our fandom ecosystem is relatively underdeveloped? There's more room to grow compared to more mature markets like the US or the UK.
Absolutely, Shannon. We're far behind. Um, but I wouldn't see it as a negative. I would see it as a growth opportunity rather. See, when it comes to markets like the US, they've had decades of building these leagues with merchandise and gaming experiences and fan communities as well. That space in India is still catching up. The great part, I think, is we've got a fundamental strong. They're in the right place. Look at the kind of the kind of audience that we have. We have the youngest audience base here in India, which is the Gen Z. The digital infrastructure offers massive scale as well. And in terms of sporting culture, I think it's an everyday culture for us. Let's accept that. So I
Yeah.
think all of this put together, the fundamentals are in the right space. The only missing piece is, I think, the monetization infrastructure. work is on that, and I'm sure we'll see development in this space as well.
So, what do you think that falls under the monetization? Does it come onto brands? Does it come onto the ecosystem as a whole? Is it maybe the leagues? The league should look for monetizable streams.
See, the kind of sporting ecosystem that we're in, I don't think we can stick to just one person taking responsibility for it. It has to come from everyone.
Yeah.
While IPL teams look at the kind of, what they've done with their merchandise, right? Through events, through creator culture, through food and music and digital content. They've aced the merchandise piece.
Yes.
So while a lot of that sort of resides with the leagues and the teams, but I think brands can also develop this space as well, and you'll see fans engaging more with them then.
I'd love to talk a little bit about storytelling, because we were touching a little bit on earlier about the women narratives, the way that women are portrayed on social media, women athletes are portrayed on social media, and how much of the authenticity comes from there. If you could tell me a little bit about storytelling, you've once said that storytelling is a brand's strongest currency.
I would advocate that even more strongly today, honestly. Um, See, today the audience controls the attention. If they don't connect with what you're showing them, they will skip, scroll, or they'll eject.
Yeah.
So it's very important that your story is relevant. It's very important that you're telling it in a way that connects with your audience as well. So what you're telling them and how you're telling them becomes really important. Authenticity in general, I think today is very critical for audiences, and
Yeah.
they can sniff out anything that doesn't feel right, doesn't feel relevant, or doesn't feel honest. I think that is where storytelling comes into play. Formats and platforms, of course, are there for amplification. Very important to also, remember that stories don't happen just during that match. Look at what that athlete is doing before that during preparation,
Yeah.
or look at what that athlete is doing after what happens. Probably a win or a loss, right?
Yeah.
All of this then accounts for great stories, and all of this then is something that people really are connecting with today.
So I think Samsung just did this with the Winter Olympics, where they decided, instead of just tying up with these athletes for the Winter Olympics, we'll do year-long partnerships. So you see the entire moment and everything leading up to just the medal. You don't just see the medal moment; you see everything leading up to it, the grit, the glory, everything. But it's difficult for brands. I mean, it's one thing to want to tell authentic stories, but how do brands craft that authentic story?
See, it's actually much simpler today. You've got the athlete at your disposal, who are being their authentic self on their social media. What's happened actually, a major change that we've seen is, how the boardroom conversations have changed. ROI kitna hai? Nobody's asking for followers kitne hai, right? All of these brands are actually now looking at athletes in a way where they want to connect their values with the personality of the athlete. So I think in terms of storytelling, there's a great space of leveraging how the athletes now are talking in a real way. A slickly short TV commercial is not going to cut it anymore.
Lovely. I think on that lovely note and that lovely line, we will end this. Thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank you so much.
Prachi.
So if you like the video, here's what you need to do. Click like, follow and subscribe our channel. Hit the bell icon right below. And more importantly, drop us your comments. So go on, do your thing.